Iran has just issued a final warning and a final notice to the Trump regime regarding the ceasefire violations by the United States and Israel. They agreed to Iran's 10-point negotiating framework and proposal as an inducement for Iran to agree to the ceasefire before Donald Trump's 8 p.m. Eastern time deadline on Tuesday. And now Donald Trump is essentially claiming that 10-point Iranian framework was actually Donald Trump's 15-point framework, but Iran just used 10 new points that nobody ever knew about. And here's what Iran's foreign minister Araghchi is saying right now. Iranian foreign minister Araghchi posted, "The Iran-U.S. ceasefire terms are clear and explicit. The U.S. must choose ceasefire or continued war via Israel. It cannot have both. The world sees the massacres in Lebanon. The ball is in the U.S. court, and the world is watching whether it will act on its commitments." Now, earlier this morning, we reported how Israel launched 100 missile strikes on Beirut in a very short period of time, killing many, many people in the area in Beirut. Missile strike after missile strike in a 10-minute time frame. Right now, we're also hearing from the Speaker of Iran's parliament, who issued the following statement on the violation of 3 key clauses of the 10-point proposal, the agreed framework, before the start of negotiations. In other words, negotiations regarding even the framework negotiations have not begun yet. They're supposed to take place in the next 24, 48 hours or so, and already Trump is now claiming the 10-point Iran negotiating framework, which they've repeated over and over again, is not real. It's actually a secret framework that Donald Trump isn't telling anybody about, because under the framework, Donald Trump had to promise security guarantees for Iran, for Hezbollah in Lebanon, for the Houthis in Yemen, and for the Shiite militia groups in Iraq. It was very explicit. Like, it's very clear what the 10 points were and what Trump's 15 points were. No, this is not in dispute, but Donald Trump is doing what he always does, which is lie and violate deals and commit fraud. And here's what the Iranian parliamentary speaker, MB Ghalibaf, says. "The deep historical distrust we hold towards the United States stems from its repeated violations of all forms of commitments, a pattern that has regrettably been repeated once again. As the President of the United States has clearly stated, the Islamic Republic of Iran's 10-point proposal is a workable basis on which to negotiate and the main framework for these talks. However, 3 clauses of this proposal have already been violated. Number 1, non-compliance with the first clause. Regarding the ceasefire in Lebanon, a commitment that Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif explicitly referred to and declared as a, quote, immediate ceasefire everywhere, including Lebanon and other regions, effective immediately. Now, Pakistan's prime minister was acting as the mediator this time, the same way previously in late February, the mediator was the foreign minister of Oman. In the February instance, the foreign minister of Oman, as an independent neutral picked by the United States, said Donald Trump and Netanyahu violated the terms of our deal in principle when they invaded Iran on that evening in late February. So a neutral and independent party was saying that Donald Trump and Netanyahu violated it. Here, Donald Trump and presumably Netanyahu picked the Pakistani prime minister, and this neutral, when the deal was announced, said that Lebanon was included in the deal. They made a social media post, said it was the 10-point proposal and that a ceasefire regarding Hezbollah in Lebanon was included in that. I mean, that's just what the facts are. You may like that fact or not like that fact. Liking or not liking facts is not what the facts are. I'm just explaining to you what went down. Number 2. A violation of Iran's airspace. The entry of an intruding drone into Iranian airspace, which was destroyed in the city of Lar in the Fars province, constitutes a clear violation of the clause prohibiting any further breach of Iran's airspace. So a drone, either Israeli or from the United States, but the Israeli drones are United States drones, went into Iranian airspace, Iran saying that's a violation of the ceasefire. Number 3, denial of Iran's right to enrichment. The right is explicitly included in the 6th clause of the framework. Iran gets to enrich uranium. They've always said that. It's why I was saying before, the only way a deal is met if Donald Trump agrees to total surrender, because Iran put forward its 10 points, and those were all in there. There's not some super secret list, as Donald Trump wants to say, right? Because this is what Donald Trump is posting right now. Donald Trump goes, numerous agreements, lists, and letters are being sent out by people that have absolutely nothing to do with the USA or Iran. Negotiation in many cases. They are total fraudsters, charlatans, and worse. They will rapidly be exposed after our federal investigation is completed. There is only one group of meaningful points that are acceptable to the United States, and we will be discussing them behind closed doors during these negotiations. These are the points that are the basis on which we agreed to a ceasefire. It is something that is reasonable and can easily be dispensed with. It's very much like fake news, CNN last night, headlining a, quote, source that had no power or authority to write a letter claiming great authority. Donald J. Trump. Donald, you posted yesterday the message of Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi. Okay? I'm reading for you his statement. I'm reading for you the Iranian statement from their parliament leader, MB Ghalibaf. These are their statements. The 10-point plan was very clear to everybody. And now Donald Trump put out Caroline Leavitt, his chief propagandist. She held a press conference moments ago where she was like, we are very unhappy with the media for claiming that Iran's 10-point plan is the plan that we agreed to. That's not the plan. What really happened was there was a 15-point plan that was Donald Trump's, and that was complete surrender from Iran. Iran agreed to the 15-point plan, but then called it their 10-point plan. It wasn't the 10-point plan that they've always been talking about. It was something new and super secret, and we're not going to talk about it yet. But that's what Iran agreed to. I'm reading for you what the Iranians are saying that their plan has always been. I'm reading for you what their statements are today. It should also be noted that in addition to the bombs raining down on Beirut, where it seems like 100 people were killed in Beirut, so lots of civilians were killed in Beirut, you also have 9 Iranian drones over Saudi Arabia, 7 missiles launched into Qatar, which they are claiming were sent by Iran. And so this is a ceasefire in name only, folks, and Iran continues to control the Strait of Hormuz. There's not many ships that are going through the Strait. It was like 1 or 2 today. It's closed. Iran says we're not opening the Strait of Hormuz unless you comply with the 10-point framework, Donald, and you're not complying with it. So let me show you. Donald Trump sends Caroline Leavitt, his chief propagandist, out, and here's what she says.
I've seen a lot of inaccurate coverage today from the media about these negotiations and these plans already. So let me be clear and correct the record. The Iranians originally put forward a 10-point plan that was fundamentally unserious, unacceptable, and completely discarded. It was literally thrown in the garbage by President Trump and his negotiating team. Many outlets in this room have falsely reported on that plan as being acceptable to the United States, and that is false. With the president's deadline fast approaching and the United States military completely decimating Iran with each passing hour, the regime acknowledged reality to the negotiating team. They put forward a more reasonable and entirely different and condensed plan to the president and his team. President Trump and the team determined the new modified plan was a workable basis on which to negotiate and to align it with our own 15-point proposal. The president's red lines, namely the end of Iranian enrichment in Iran, have not changed. And the idea that President Trump would ever accept an Iranian wish list as a deal is completely absurd. The president will only make a deal that serves in the best interests of the United States of America, and he as a negotiating team will focus on this effort over the next 2 weeks, so long as the Strait of Hormuz remains open with no limitations or delays.
By the way, you want to see how it's being talked about on the international community? Here's Japanese media trying to explain a taco. Play this clip.
Trump always chickens out.
Then after the previous clip I showed you of Caroline Leavitt saying, oh, it's all this inaccurate coverage, here she is saying the Iranians back down. Let's play it.
Danny.
Should the world not take his word seriously?
The world should take his word very seriously in understanding that the president is always most interested in results. And it was the Iranians who backed down, not President Trump. He said that they would face very grave consequences, as you just laid out, by the 8 p.m. deadline if they did not agree to reopening the Strait of Hormuz. And what did they do last night? they agreed to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Danny.
More from Caroline Levitt right here, where she says, Donald Trump started Operation Epic Fury with all of these objectives, and we've achieved them all. No one's believing that, Caroline. Play this clip.
The world has just witnessed a historically swift and successful military triumph. President Trump started Operation Epic Fury with strategic military objectives, and the United States has clearly achieved them.
Then she goes and attacks NATO and says that the U.S. will likely be withdrawing from NATO very soon. Play it.
Chief. I'll take a couple more in the back. Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
On NATO, I'll take your question. Go
Thank
ahead.
you, Caroline. On NATO, can you tell me, is the United States still considering withdrawing from NATO? Is that still a possibility?
It's something the president has discussed, and I think it's something the president will be discussing in a couple of hours with Secretary General Ruta, and perhaps you'll hear directly from the president following that meeting later this afternoon. Thank you, everyone.
More from Caroline Levitt attacking NATO right here. Play this clip.
I have a direct quote from the President of the United States on NATO, and I will share it with all of you. They were tested and they failed. And I would add, it's quite sad that NATO turned their backs on the American people over the course of the last 6 weeks, when it's the American people who have been defunding their defense. As you know, President Trump will be meeting with Secretary Ruta in a couple of hours here at the White House, and I know he looks forward to having a very frank and candid conversation with him.
Then a reporter asks her, don't you think that it is inappropriate for Donald Trump to be declaring war on an entire civilization? Doesn't he lose the moral high ground? And she's like, no, he has the moral high ground. Let's play this clip.
Regarding the president's rhetoric, when the U.S. invaded Iraq in 2003, George W. Bush said in a message to the Iraqi people that the military campaign was directed, quote, against the lawless men who rule your country and not against you. Yesterday, the president threatened to destroy Iran's civilization, the entire civilization. Not the Iranian government, but the Iranian civilization, the Iranian people. The U.S. has been a moral leader for most of its history by fighting wars against other governments, not against civilizations. How can the president claim that America can ever have the moral high ground if he's threatening to destroy civilizations and not casting wars as fights against other governments?
Andrew, I think you should take a look at the actions of this president over the course of the past 6 weeks, and the actions of our brave men and women in our United States military, who have taken out essentially taken out the military of a rogue Islamic regime that has chanted death to America for 47 years, that has killed and maimed thousands of American soldiers over the course of the last 5 decades. The president absolutely has the moral high ground over the Iranian terrorist regime, and for you to even suggest otherwise is frankly insulting.
With all due respect, Caroline,
Go ahead.
with all due respect,
Go ahead.
there is...
Just given what we've seen in Lebanon today.
More from Caroline Levitt right here when she's asked, well, so who controls the Strait of Hormuz right now, Caroline? Watch her response. Let's play this clip.
In the blue, go ahead.
Thank you, Kathy. The White House posted the statement from the Iranian government that the passage in the strait will be coordinated with Iran's armed forces. As of today, who controls the Strait of Hormuz?
Again, these statements were put out 12 hours ago. We expect that the strait will be opened immediately. As I've said earlier, we have seen an uptick in traffic in the strait, and it's something that we are monitoring minute by minute, hour by hour as the days go on.
What about the fact that bombs are dropping in Iran and Iran's activated its anti-aircraft and its air defenses? Play this clip.
The latest news out of Iran is that the air defenses have been activated in several cities, including Isfahan, and that explosions have been heard in Isfahan. Who is bombing Iran right now?
Were those reports just as of a few minutes ago?
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously I'll have to go back and check with the national security team. I'm standing out here with all of you, but I will do that and we will get you an answer, okay?
And then she lies and says that Lebanon is not part of the ceasefire, when we know that Lebanon is part of the ceasefire.
Danny.
Thanks, Karen. Would President Trump like to see Lebanon included in this peace deal? As you know, there have been increased Israeli strikes on Lebanon today with dozens of casualties there.
Sure. Lebanon is not part of the ceasefire. That has been relayed to all parties involved in the ceasefire. As you know, Prime Minister Netanyahu put out a statement last night in support of the ceasefire, in support of the United States' efforts, and he's also assured the president they'll continue to be a helpful partner throughout the course of the next 2 weeks. weeks.
Is there
Finally, a reporter says Iranian state media saying that Iran has closed off the Strait of Hormuz. There's basically no difference in what happened 24 hours before. And she's like, that's not true. We're going to look into that. But that's in the deal. Iran agreed that they would give up the Strait of Hormuz. Play this clip.
Thank you for being here, Shane. Gabe.
Thank you, Caroline. Iranian state media is saying that Iran has now closed off the Strait of Hormuz today in response to Israeli attacks on Lebanon. What's the White House response to that? And you just listed many military successes. I understand that. But strategically, how is the administration arguing that Iran does not have more economic leverage than it did before the start of the war?
Sure. Well, with respect to the first reporting out of Iranian state media, the president was made aware of those reports before I came to the podium. That is completely unacceptable. And again, this is a case of what they're saying publicly is different privately. We have seen an uptick of traffic in the Strait today, and I will reiterate the president's expectation and demand that the Strait of Hormuz is reopened immediately, quickly, and safely. That is his expectation. It has been relayed to him privately that is what's taking place, and these reports publicly are false.
Caroline, the president yesterday threatened that a whole civilization.
That's not what they agreed to. I have the statement from Iran's Supreme National Security Council. This isn't some list floating around. People did make a list when they read what's written here by Iran's Supreme National Security Council. But they said, we've just delivered a crushing defeat to the U.S. They've agreed to our 10-point plan. And for everybody watching the MeidasTouch Network, the same 10-point plan I've been talking about for 4 weeks. It's the same thing. Nothing changed. Commitment to non-aggression, continuation of Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz, acceptance of uranium enrichment, lifting of all sanctions, secondary sanctions, UN resolutions, termination of all abortive governor resolutions, reparations, withdrawal of U.S. combat forces from the region, cessation of war on all fronts, including against Hezbollah and Lebanon. Very clear. Oh, they've always said that. Never changed. They said it after. Pakistan's prime minister said it. So the final notice has been issued. Donald Trump's going to continue the fraud and claim, they've agreed to all my terms. The 15-point plan was their real plan. No, you agreed to their 10-point plan. That happened. Where this nets out, we'll be following, but that's the truth. That's the reality of what's happening. That's all we're going to give you, the truth here on the MeidasTouch Network. Now hit subscribe, help us get to 7 million subscribers, and thanks so much for watching.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.